here. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being flexible with the schedule change. Obviously, I can't control the weather. I wish I could, but can't. So again, thanks everybody for being flexible and being able to reschedule this one. Today we have Andrew Russo from Baca Systems. He's going to be presenting practical techniques for engaging with Salesforce support, and it's kind of timely today with the Salesforce issues that's going on. This will be a good deep dive into how to get the best out of reaching out to Salesforce. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Andrew. Go ahead and take us away.
Awesome. Thank you for the intro. So today we're going to go over the session, which I named What's Your Org ID? The alternate name was going to be Will you join a Webex? Because those are the two questions that I get. And like I started honest, I got beyond, I actually one time, I should get a screenshot of it. I asked, and I tweeted at Parker Harris and I asked if there's any correlation between compensation and how many WebExes that they support gets you to join, if that's part of like the comp plan or the incentives, because I'm convinced that it is.
Nice.
So session is What's Your Org ID? And we're going to go over kind of what's the best way to get help from Salesforce support and actually have a meaningful connection with them to get help. So before we do that, this is what I woke up to this morning. So we need a moment of silence for everybody who is having a really bad day. So I'm assuming there's a good amount of people who are probably impacted by this. There's nothing we can do, but their end users are going to be complaining and thinking that it's them. So like it's kind of every admin and developer's problem. So background on myself. I'm Andrew Russo. I work at Baca Systems. We are a robotics company. We do robotics for the stone industry. I am the solo architect, admin, developer, business analyst, solo person. We have a highly complex org, 1,268 objects, 48,000 plus custom fields, data cloud, all of the generative AI tools and stuff in our org, highly complex. And I'm the solo Salesforce resource, which makes it fun. So, safe harbor statement, we need one, but we don't actually need one because, like, I don't have anything forward looking to say. So, let's kind of just take a look back at 2024. This was information that I gathered in May. I have not gone back to go update it since May because I'm going to be honest, I had to do this all by hand. So this is every one of our support cases from our org that I've logged from January 1st of this year to May 26th of this year. So approximately 5 months, 26 days of support cases. There was in total 199 cases within that window. And if you kind of take a look at the numbers, actually kind of are interesting of it. The majority for us at Baca of case that we're logging are bugs inside of the Salesforce products. So out of this, there's 132 known issues created. So on the known issue site, that's a bug that they have to go fix. Of those, if we look accessibility cases, color contrast, it's all messed up, keyboard navigation and things like that, as well as agent force related ones were kind of some of the top categories. But the other notable thing, if we look at it, of the percentage, it's roughly, I think it's 87% are product defect. So while there's only 132 known issues, there's a good chunk that either they fixed before the case was closed because they got the product team to go fix it fast, or they were already some other known issue that someone else might have logged a case at the same time and it wasn't fixed. But they were product defects. And also you can see by case owner, I've had a very large number of case owners. So it's not like I'm interacting with only one case owner. There are a couple that are kind of often. And all this information I manually pulled, by the way, from the help and training portal. So I logged in and recorded each one in Excel. I couldn't figure out how to do reports and charts in Excel. So I put it in the Salesforce org and I made a dashboard. It was easier that way. So that's kind of looking back at it. And that I think is part of the reason why I feel like I've got good insights and qualified to share information on this topic. Because I've done a lot of support cases and I've figured out how to actually make it realistically feasible to work with them. So let's think about cases kind of as a couple different types of cases is a good way to break it apart and think about this. So I think there's three major categories: bugs and actual issues. So like you're hitting a roadblock and it's an actual bug. Like for some reason, a governor limit gets hit. I've got an open case right now that I've been fighting since September about it for a flow. It's like a governor limit. There's no documentation of what this limit is that it's hitting, but it just randomly will hit it overnight when it runs in a batch. So those are kind of bugs and things like that. There's questions training, which are more of like I don't know how to do this and I'm asking for help. A lot of times those ones, Google, Consum, and Ohana Slack, Trailblazer Community, X, Blue Sky now. Everywhere else will be maybe more helpful. Just going to be honest for questions and training related. But it's a type of case. The other one is feature activations or settings changes. So it's really just a matter of like you want to have a feature turned on in your org that you have to log a case for. A good example, Einstein activity capture. If you want to have Einstein activity capture enabled for your org. Fun fact for anyone who's going to watch this, SKU hack from a different session I've given. If you have Einstein activity capture, but you want to extend your retention time for it, because by default, I think it's only 18 months. It's less than 2 years that it keeps your emails. All you have to do is go and buy one inbox license. I think it's $50 for a single user. Once you have that in your org, you can log a support case and they will extend your retention time for emails to 5 years. Just buy one license. Does not need to be assigned to a user. You don't have to use it. You just have to have it in the org. Or if you're on UE, you can just log that case and they will do it. So that's a really good SKU hack. That would use a feature activation one. The other thing just to kind of think about too with this of types of cases, the outcomes of bug ones generally it's going to be a known issue is created. There's a workaround to get around it and you just have to live with it. Idea exchange, because they're like case deflection. We can't help you. Go to the idea exchange. Maybe we'll do it in 15, 20 years. Or in 15, 20 years, we'll say Data Cloud fixes it, like roll up summary fields. And then training is just like information provided. So those are kind of like the types of cases and what you'll probably get out of them. This is the fun one. This is Salesforce's org chart as demonstrated by armadillos. Why armadillos? Well, they're kind of slow. They have a hard shell. They don't listen. A lot of ways that you could relate armadillos to have it as a really good metaphor. So looking at the interaction, you'll primarily, as an admin, architect, developer, interact with right here. This frontline case owner who you're interacting with is probably the most of your interaction you'll have on a case, unless it's like a really big incident where you might end up interacting directly with engineers. Sometimes it's pretty rare. So when you make a case, there is a pod of case owners they call them support engineers. They are the front line. They are in groups generally of about 15 plus or minus 5. And they are what they consider to be a pod swarm group of engineers. They're like one little group. They have a swarm lead who is their manager. The idea is that when you log that case, that group, someone in that group can solve it. It goes to one case owner. And if they can't figure it out, then they will start a swarm where they will have the swarm lead or their boss get the other people in that group to try and help on that case to identify it and work through the problem. In theory, that's good. But if you go on the Help a Training Portal website, when you go to log a case, you'll notice there's a category under sales and service that's called general. And it covers permissions, objects, and every other thing under the sun is all in that one group. So if you think about it, the majority of cases go there. And that idea of, okay, we have a small little group and somebody in it will know the topics. You can't have a group of 10 people and have one person be an expert to provide full coverage of that whole topic. So that's where sometimes they have to go bring in the swarm lead who will go and bring it to other groups and bring in additional experts that are in other areas that might be a little bit more suited to help. with it. That's kind of the idea of Salesforce's support model there. But the important thing that you have to start to think about is then what happens when they actually need to go fix something because it's a bug. Because this works for questions and answers that they need questions, training, guidance, things like that. It works for feature activation because generally it's just that one person or somebody in that group knows how to turn on. But if it's a bug, they can't fix the bug. They can maybe find a workaround for you, but you're kind of well, you're going to be waiting a bit of time. So the real thing that we need to think about is now how do we get to over here where we actually have the engineer who can fix bugs? So there's kind of a big wall. That's the Salesforce org chart because you have support and you have engineering and you have product. Product and engineering are close, like really close, but they're kind of two separate orgs at Salesforce. The product managers are parallel tied to it, engineering group resources. Um, so this wall has something in between it. So there is Gus. If anybody has used or been on the app exchange seen Agile Accelerator, Agile Accelerator is pretty much the same thing as what Gus is at Salesforce. It's called the Grand Unification System. It was created as a way to manage work items, which is what they call a ticket in Agile Accelerator and in Gus. And that is like almost think of it as their Jira. That's actually the best way to describe it. It is their Jira that they use. So this org chart, how they traverse it is through Gus. They would log a structured investigation to get over here to an actual software engineer. So you have support engineer, software engineer, so an actual person who can go look at it and dive deeper. But the only way to do it is a form that they have to fill out and make that work item. And there's a lot of stuff that they have to have on it, which is important to understand. Then that engineer might have to go to the product research and development engineering. And over here, the other thing to note is that sometimes some product teams that are well funded and have a lot of product, they will actually have a separate engineering resource inside of the product and engineering team that is funded directly that only handles support cases. So if it's a small feature, like if it's not a big feature of the product, they might have the actual people who are building the new features will help with the support cases if any come in. But for things like Apex that have a lot of cases, they have dedicated support engineers. So they're not pulling off of developing for the next release to support your cases. So overall, though, then there's the product manager. They're sleeping in this case. Sometimes, honestly, maybe they always are. I don't know. But product manager over there. So kind of think about what support policies are because that somewhat defines what you need to provide. So this is important to understand when working with Salesforce support. And it's not limited to this list, but these are some of like the key ones to know. They will not and cannot log in without written permission. Even if you say it over the phone, all calls with Salesforce support are transcribed and tied to a case. So they can see the transcript, but they will still confirm in writing if you said it over the phone. And even a lot of times try and get you to respond back to confirm. They also cannot make changes in production if there is not a way for it to be done in the sandbox without a justification of like why production's the only place you can do it. Some things like Data Cloud can get around it because, well, Data Cloud sandboxes, what are those? They can't download data from your org. And if you send them data to import, they also cannot import data to your org. There's a massive approval process that has to happen if there's any modifying of data like that inside of your org, which is probably not worth it to even try and touch. So in general, they can't download or import data. They won't touch billing, licensing at all. So don't log a case asking about adding a license because they'll end up just telling you to go to your account executive. The other thing is that this is like a big one. If you have a managed package and it is code that is running for a managed package, you are going to hit a roadblock. most likely. They cannot see anything more in managed package code than what you can see. They cannot see debug logs. It will say the same thing where it says hidden in the debug logs for like if it's a managed package to you, they will see that as well. So understand that and don't get frustrated when they come back and like, well, we can't see it. There is a big caveat though. Most ISVs won't do this, but they can. There is a setting that with written permission from the partner, they can turn on in your org, which will unhide debug logs. ISVs don't even all know that this exists. It's commonly has to be used for GovCloud customers or US only because they cannot grant login access to an ISV. So the only way to do it is that they have to essentially turn that feature on because they are not able to grant login access always. But it's there and it can help a lot when you have performance related things that they can't really troubleshoot perfectly and Salesforce support needs to help. So that permission though requires written explicit permission from the partner for it to get enabled. And it's sometimes challenging to get the partner to want to do it. So before logging a case, known issues.
Real quick question, Andrew.
Yeah.
So I work at an ISV, so I'm familiar with being able to only see my stuff and nobody else's stuff. Is that ability per namespace, or is it for the entirety of anything you have installed on the org? So like if I have multiple packages, is it I'm going to be able to see everything from every package, or is it just that one particular package?
I don't know the exact answer, but one thing to note is it does not let you see the Apex code itself.
Right.
Important thing.
Just the
It's
debugs,
only
right?
the logs. I know that it's not global. It might be, it's limited at the very maximum to a namespace.
Okay.
I think it's a namespace. You might be able to go down to a package prefix, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a namespace. The reason is because if you have if you have one namespace, Apex can traverse cross namespace. So you're essentially allowing it to be viewed for across the namespace.
Okay.
And it's also a duration. It has a time limit on it. So once it's enabled, that time it auto disables.
It's only for that, right? Yeah, it's only right. They don't want to leave that on.
Exactly. So it's set up so it's an expiring thing that gets put on. Sometimes it's like 15 to 30 days is normally the most they'll ever turn it on for. So yeah, but it makes it easy because then you don't have to try and ISV partner get logs sometimes.
It's especially challenging. We have some customers that are on government cloud, and it's like, sorry, can't help you.
Yeah. So that setting, if you haven't done it, that might help you with GovCloud customers.
Good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll have to provide written permission on pretty much company letterhead that says that it can be enabled for this specific org ID. Gotcha. And then a case has to get submitted to Salesforce, or the customer can give it to their case owner.
Okay.
One of the two. If it feels sketchy, it won't help.
So yeah.
So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So known issues, obviously check there. If you have a gap, like if you're getting one of those error messages where it has the 3 numbers, those numbers are actually really important. If anyone doesn't know what they are, first number and second number is kind of that unique identifier to whatever that bug that happened in your org is. The last number is think of it kind of like the type of error-ish. Whenever an error happens, they take kind of like what the error looks like, and then they give it a unique stamp. And if that error happens again for some other customer in Salesforce, when they take what that error looks like, it comes up with the same stamp. So it's kind of like if we get this weird SQL error on the back end hidden from the user, and it looks like this, we give it a unique identifier, and then this other time it happens. So it helps them to correlate, oh, this error in Apex has happened 45 times right after we made this deployment. Oh, we should start investigating it even before our customers reported it. But that helps them to go into Splunk to find it. So that error number helps. The last one in parentheses, put it into known issues. A lot of times, if there's a known issue already, you can search for it by that error message because it'll be referenced in the text of a known issue. Google community, obviously there, have a separate person if you have like another admin or whatever to look at it. Sometimes it's just a different perspective helps. The last thing is test it in a separate org. It happens to me, and sometimes I'm like, I skip that, but it turns out it's like something stupid that I'm doing in that org. Like if you can't reproduce it in a separate org, it's gonna be a little bit more challenging. So try what you're doing in a separate org. Sometimes it's like, oh wait, this org has this bad data that we is broken because it's a partial sandbox, and that's why it's failing, and you just forget about that. So that's before logging case. Support investigations, like I mentioned, they need certain things to put a Gus work item in. And this is why Salesforce Support says, what's your org ID? And also they ask for to join a Webex. Because if you give them a video, what you're actually asking them to do is to watch a video, go step by step, follow the video in a dev org. Then you're asking them to type out the steps of what you're doing in the video that they're testing in a separate dev org to fill out a support investigation. So that's why when you give them a video, they generally don't want to watch the video, is because they'll spend all that time. They'll hit one roadblock in the middle of trying to reproduce it in their dev org, because a lot of customers don't test it in a separate org. And then they will end up blocked. And it's like, great, I'm halfway through the video and now I can't do what it is because the video, it's whatever the problem is, isn't happening, or they're blocked. And like, it's like, oh, well, let's go call the customer. So they sometimes rather get on a call, because then they can kind of, if a question comes up when they're trying to walk through it, they can essentially just ask it at that time. It's also a way to probably meet SLAs, to be honest, also. But the important thing is that when they submit a support investigation, they have to be able to provide steps to reproduce the actual outcome, expected outcome, impact on business. If you remember before in the old support form that you would submit, they used to ask you the number of users impacted. Is it internal or external? Does a workaround exist, and does it impact a release or go live? They remove those questions from making a case with Salesforce. However, those questions exist inside of Salesforce. So to make a support investigation, they need to have that type of information to provide to engineering. Whether it's relevant or not, they have to put something in that field to provide for the case. So that's the important things to understand, that they have to be able to provide on the case. The other important thing, though, is that the steps to reproduce have to be able to be done in a dev org, unless it's very narrow and can't be done in their actual, like outside of your org itself, because it's such a very unique thing. They have to be able to give steps for a dev org for engineering, because engineering generally will never access your org unless it's something very specific. They want to reproduce in a dev org. So when you think about how should you give this information, a video is not helpful for them. If your goal is to get help as fast as possible, which for me, that's my goal, is I just want to log the case, get a known issue created, and forget about it, because they'll fix it when they fix it. I can't change that. I just want to get it in the backlog. You want to cut down the time. If you put a video, you want them to watch it, you just added 3 days to the whole thing, because you'll schedule a meeting, you'll have a video. But if you give them all of this information, that's how you can actually be able to get help fast. So when we look at creating a case, the first thing I always put is a good subject at the top that just high level describes it. If it's production impacting, put in like brackets and then in all caps inside of it, production impacting, or something like that. If it's like a major issue, because think about it, they're using Salesforce. They have a list view of their cases. Generally, their caseload is about 20 cases for one person. When they're looking in that list, you want production impacting in all caps, because it stands out to their eyes of that case that they own. Then I put a summary of the issue, because when they read it, I want them to quickly just have a pair to just get a high level what's up. The business impact is important. Org IDs and written approval for login. If they used to have it that you had to say that you approve login access as a checkbox, they removed the checkbox from the submission form. But if you don't give them the org IDs and say that they're allowed to log in, they can't log in. Just because your org ID is listed right here on the case doesn't mean they can log in. You need to provide explicit, you're allowed to log in for them to be able to log in without asking you first. Then steps to reproduce in a dev org, detailed steps, everything that you would do. The reason why is because they can take that, copy, paste into their investigation. They can take almost all of this and paste it into their structured investigation and be able to have engineering go look at it with minimal effort. It's about making their life easier because then they don't want to second guess it. I've had them not even try and test the steps to reproduce because they just see them and they're like, oh, that's like actually that likely will work. And they just don't put the effort to do it. Like I've seen my steps to reproduce become the known issue website steps to reproduce, like copy pasted. And that's how I know that they copy and pasted my steps because they literally are word for word how I wrote them here.
Yeah,
Correct org
you're
ID.
making their life easier, so they're
Exactly. But think,
more likely to work on your stuff. Yeah.
well, it's not even more like if you submit a case today, if I submit a case right now, they will look at it today. If it's 11:30 and maybe they have 3.5, 4 hours left in their shift, if I give them all the steps and they copy paste, they might submit that to engineering today. If I don't and they want to schedule a call, you're not scheduling a call till Monday. That means now you're waiting 4 days that it's not in the backlog of it. Monday, then it'll be back and forth. You probably wouldn't have an investigation submitted until Wednesday. But if you give them all the stuff, they might just copy paste it and submit that today. So you're talking about today versus Wednesday. That's a big gap. Appropriate severity and the org ID here is important. The other big one is file names. Don't put files that say screenshot with the date. Think about when you're in Salesforce and you have a list of files on a case. They have an org, it's called org CS. They're in Salesforce. Do you want to open up and have to figure out which file is which of the pictures that you attached? If you name them of like what it is, it's like this one is the external service side by side, external open API spec from the JSON. This one is the set as integer and the open API spec JSON file. Like putting the names so that they can understand what is what helps a lot for them. So this is the case that I was just showing there. And this is an actual case that I had with it. Steps to reproduce of it going to a fresh org, go to name credentials, make it like this is very detailed. Also, I'm explaining about how there's a go live. The other thing is that I mentioned that I held off on logging as a Sev 1, mainly so that the case owner knows that like it is really important, but it's a Sev 2. But in about 15 days, it will become a Sev 1 if they don't have a resolution because it's going to break production, which is when the summer release was going to hit our production org because it broke in the summer release. So we'll go the next thing, just kind of looking at, well, I guess actually, does anyone have any questions on case part? Good. Okay. Closing a case, surveys. They look dumb. Everyone ignores them. They actually matter. So like when you get a survey and you think about it, do I actually want to leave a survey? One, sometimes when you have case owners and you give them a good survey, they remember that you gave them a survey. When you do fill out the survey, mention them by name in it. If you remember the person's first name, just throw it in there because when they look at the managers, look at the text of like a sentence, and they see the name, it helps tie it to them and like they get shout outs in their internal meetings and performance reviews of once. So putting a name helps them if you had a great experience. If you had a bad experience, also putting a survey help like matters. And how I know that they matter is because I filled out this and I took a screenshot because I was actually just aiming. I sent it to somebody else. When I was leaving the review, I'm like, this is probably one of the meaner ones I've left. I didn't give a horrible survey score. I think I gave a 3. which 3 out of 5 like isn't terrible. I know some people won't give a 4 or a 5 unless it's perfect. A 4 is average and 3 is like below. So I gave like a 3 out of 5 for it, and I wasn't happy. They closed the case, and I thought it was intentional. That was at 7:50 p.m. At 8, hold on, I need to move it over. At 8:13, I had an email from their manager that was well written out, acknowledging all the stuff here. So like they got the survey at 7:50 and they started drafting a response from a manager that had to have been within like 5 minutes, started working on it, or 10 minutes. Because by 8:13, having a full summary and like thing about it back in my email with their cell phone number if I wanted to go reach out to that manager from it. Outside of the case, like an actual acknowledgement of the survey. So if you have a bad experience, you very much should go and put the you very much should put the actual your feedback in a survey because they read it. If you have a great experience, also give the support person props and just put a survey because it does help them. They're very metrics driven as a company. So also if you give a 1, it probably would be bad. So just be careful. 3 is enough to get someone's attention. 1 is enough to probably get some big attention to that name. So with that, does anyone have like questions? I've got a lot of experience working them. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything. Really, it's up to you. Someone has to have a question. That's like a requirement. Paul's got questions. I know Paul might, or Jason.
Yeah, I mean, we are in kind of a, I'm in kind of a weird position a lot of times where, like I'm requesting an issue with a sandbox or something because we're building a product. We're not necessarily running we have Salesforce internally for our business, but we're building stuff that's then being installed on other people's production orgs. So when we've had an issue, it's usually in like a sandbox or a scratch org or something along those lines, or a um, you know um, like a partner org, and I tend to get less than the speed of their responses tends to be less than what I would expect, as a partner in ISV. Have you had any, do these, you know, things that you've kind of experienced been similar in that vein? Have you had, you know, is there any nuance there with that? And
Yeah. So I can actually speak firsthand to this from the last 2 weeks, or the last, well, essentially week of my life. Um, we had a fun situation where we have a lot of objects, like I mentioned in the beginning. We have 1,248 or 1,268 custom objects, 48,000 plus custom fields. We have a lot of managed package. One of them is Rootstock ERP. There is I think it's 7 or 8 packages that are all like they build on each other because of namespaces, 1GP, 2GP, and stuff like that. So when you do upgrades, there's some level of like there's technical like hierarchy of requirements. Like you can't install the parent, like you have to have the first base
yep,
installed before the second one because like of a true technical requirement. But there's also just like interaction stuff. So permission sets are in a separate package than the actual app itself. So if they put a new field here, you might need to have this other package also installed. Essentially, there was a very great bug in Salesforce itself last week that when they installed production, the first 2 packages worked, the third package failed, which then meant the fourth package failed. So we had this mismatch of versions, which they told the ISV they do the updates for us. They install the versions for us, which is nice for me. They came back Monday or the beginning of the day and we're like, hey, just so you know, we tried installing overnight. There's a problem. I'm like, okay, great. They said they logged a case to Salesforce. Give it a couple hours. User asks why they can't save purchase orders because there's field problems. Didn't know the exact cost, figured it was somewhat related. So I logged a case with the partner. Turns out there was permissions that were missing for field level security. Then there was other problems. So like this mismatch happened. They logged a case with Salesforce support already about it, and they put it as a Sev one because it was customer impacting for
Right.
us. They have standard support as a partner. They have partner premier support, which
Partner
I think is
Premier.
just
Yeah, yeah.
standard.
That's standard. Yeah.
But they have their partner support. They logged as a Sev one. I realized, crap, we're having a lot of impact from this. So what the recommendation I would say is log a second case. If the customer knows about the impact, for me having a customer case for it, we have US only Premier, which means US people based in the US are the only ones who can touch the case. And if I log a Sev one, it will mean more than if the partner does. While it's a duplicate case for the same issue, my case, they have to follow up every hour for it. I have US Premier only. I don't have signature or anything crazy, but having both cases helps a lot and allows there to be more eyes on the issue. Um, that's kind of the best one or best thing for like for this one, they had to do an emergency fix which went out technically this morning. Oh no, yesterday morning is when it went out. But it took a full week to get it done because
Wow.
they want to do extra testing. Um, but that was my life for the last week was trying to figure out what was also broken that we haven't identified.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. The managed packages definitely adds a couple wrenches into it. The other thing is sometimes with managed packages, they will send you back to the ISV for stuff that they shouldn't.
Yeah. We get
Example,
that a lot.
list views for some reason and starting over the summer, like don't load always and the user has to clear cookies and cache to like reset them. I've had a case for now 2 weeks on it, and the a new case owner took over the case because the other ones went on sick leave, and they said, "Well, that it looks like you're talking about a managed package object that it happened on as the example. So you need there's nothing we can do. Reach out to the ISV." And I responded, "This happens across all objects. This is not an ISV problem. This is Salesforce. Also, what's an ISV going to do to fix the list views, like the normal list
Right.
view that's
The
under a
built
tab
in.
of
Right.
records?
Yeah.
How is their managed package going to impact any of that?" They responded and apologized, and then now it's back and it's still sitting in support's thing because like it's obviously not a managed package one. So know whose realm something is in. If you're a customer, support's not always right.
Yep. Yep.
Customer's right. I like that more. Um, any other questions, thoughts?
Going once, going twice.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this was a lot of fun. We have a goat. Why not? It's a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope it was helpful to kind of understand the fun workings of support. And if you ever have questions, find me on, I guess, now X, still LinkedIn, um, Blue Sky. I don't know how long until people all go there. I don't even know. Find me somewhere. Search my name. I'm very vocal. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Thank you, Andrew. This honestly, this one was really I learned something new. So anytime I learn something new, it's time well spent, I think. So appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time out to present to us. So
thank you.
with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up today. Please join us next month. We actually have Fabrice who's on here, who's going to be presenting. He's going to take us on a deep dive of how to read debug logs. It's I'm excited about this one. It's going to be a really good one, I think. So okay, all right. With that, I'll
Yep.
let everybody go. Have a good rest of your day.